Hey, what's up, eGroups? It is good to be with you again. As you can see, I'm still wearing my Sunday best. I'm sure that after Sunday's message, you probably decided to also dress up for your eGroups. I'm sure you've just decided to make that a new way of, no, just joking. But if you didn't catch it, so our Sunday message this week, we were thinking about this whole idea. What does it look like to bring our best? What does it look like to bring our best to God? And in this, we were looking at this passage in Malachi. I want to take you back to it just to kind of refresh it for you for a moment. Malachi chapter 1, you've got God speaking through his prophet Malachi to his people. Especially, he's talking to the priests, actually, the leaders. And he's going, look, the offerings you're bringing me, you're really giving me your leftovers. And God basically, he's so frustrated that they've kind of just gotten so casual and so kind of whatever in their worship. That God's like, look, I actually wish you just closed the doors up. I wish you just didn't bring anything. Like he says, stop lighting your useless fires. I think it's this really strong phrase. And God is basically trying to get across them, look, I am an awesome God. I am a mighty God. And so why would you bring me things that you wouldn't even serve if you just had like an important guest coming over? Why would you bring me less than your best? Not only less than your best, but he said they're actually going, look, I'll bring something great. And then when it comes down to it, they just bring kind of, what's the least valuable kind of sacrifice I could give, and I'll bring that. Now, the reason I think this passage is really important for us is because it highlights something about how we relate to God that is sometimes, it's not always how we think about him. Often we think about God, and like I said, we don't normally dress like this on a Sunday. Because one of the things we emphasize often about God in our time, in our era, in our culture, is we might emphasize the fact that God is so relational and he welcomes us exactly as we are. And that's so important to understand about God. We don't lose that side of him. But we should also understand that God is a great and mighty king. And there's a way we should relate to him that values and honors who he is. And so I encourage you to read that passage and to just begin to ask yourself, what does it look like for me to bring my very best to God? And are there times and ways and spaces that it can become easy to offer less than my best? Now, alongside this passage, I think a great place to go is Romans chapter 12. And especially want to encourage you to go to the Message translation. I love how Eugene Peterson just brings out the richness of Romans chapter 12, 1 and 2. Because in those verses, what he's really getting at, what Paul was getting at, was just worship now as well. We need to be reminded that it's not just restricted to, say, a Sunday gathering or what I do with a little bit of my finances to it. No, worship is about offering my whole life. How do I bring, he says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. Now you don't just get to give something and then move on. He's like, no, your whole body is the sacrifice. And I love these verses. Let me read for you 1 and 2 again. It says, so here's what I want you to do, God helping you. We need God's help in this. Take your everyday life, your ordinary life. You're sleeping, you're eating, you're going to work, and you're walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. This is something I want you to talk about tonight. What do you think it looks like to place your everyday life before God? How do you welcome God into every space in your life? And not just welcome him, but say, God, in this arena, help me to offer my very best to you. And I love what he says going on from this. He says, embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for him. You know what? The bringing your best is about understanding this is what God's done for me. And so now I'm going to live my life in response to that. He says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. What a challenge that is. We can become so caught up in our culture. And our culture always gravitates towards comfort. Our culture gravitates towards live your best life, do what's comfortable for you, works for you. We don't want to get caught in that. We want to find our best by bringing our best to God. So he says, instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what he wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, which is always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. I'd love to actually just sit and just talk about these verses with you for another half hour, because I think there is so much in here to say, what does it look like to be those people who are transformed? Culture, our own kind of propensity sometimes, they drive us towards what is comfortable for me. As he says here, it's often dragging us down to its level, culture, the world around us, towards its level of immaturity. But as followers of Christ, we're called to offer our very best. Our lives should look radically, radically different in this world because we are always offering our very best to God. Imagine the difference that would make. Peter, in 1 Peter chapter 2, I think, he talks about live such good lives among people who don't know Christ so that they might see your good deeds and glorify God. We should live these lives that are always unique and different because we are offering our very best to God. So I'd love for you just to have a conversation tonight. This is one that we've got to work out. We've got to talk about it in community. What does this look like? What does it look like to offer your best to God in every arena? I'd love for you to think about what does it look like to offer God your best in a structured worship context, like a Sunday service. That's kind of what we saw happening in Malachi. And what does it look like also to offer your very best to God when it comes to your everyday life, your work, your eating, your sleeping? But really flesh out with one another. What are the challenges associated with this? What are some strategies you might find for how you remember who God is and bring your best to him? Not from a place of earning his favor, but out of response to the awesome God that he is. Because as we offer, here's what I really believe and want you to just talk through. As we offer our best to him, I believe you can find his best for your life. So nut this out. What's this look like? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not Thursday. You can take Thursday off, just joking. Thursdays, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What does this look like to live our lives as an offering before God, bringing the best of who we are in response to the awesome King that he is?